So Kevin OConnell, and that's why I had Kevin in my head, will be Patrick Swayze to Kirk Cousins' Demi Moore. They're going to mold some clay on that field, and it's going to be marvelous.
On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. One-of-a-kind opinions, big-name guests, the teams you care about every day. It's the Ron Johnson Show, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Ron Johnson Show, and I am your host, Ron Johnson. On today's episode of the Ron Johnson Show, we're going to have Heisman Trophy winner, not a candidate, winner, Ron Dayne, running back out of Wisconsin. He's going to tell us who his top 5 NFL running backs are. I wonder who's number 1. I wonder who's going to get snubbed. I know there's going to be some snubs because there always is when there's a top 5. We have to talk a little bit about the Miami Heat Celtics. Just quick, we'll hit on that. Heat won. That's it. And then, of course, we got to talk about the Vikings. And then Daily 3 coming up later as well. But as I bring my producer in, Sam Ekstrom, Sam, you had a chance to go out to minicamp OTAs for the Vikings. And so when you look at them opening up, I saw pictures of Dalvin Cook in number 4. I saw Alexander Madison in number 2. I see Cam Dantzler in number 3. What was your immediate thought seeing those guys out there?
Yeah, a lot of single digits. You got Peterson in 7, you got Scene in 6, and you got the kicker is 49, Ron. The undrafted free agent is absurd, and they've got a backup punter who's 66. So I don't know what I'm seeing. It was a pretty low-key practice. It was individual drills for about 45 minutes, and then they did a little bit of 11-on-11 at the end, but not a lot. So we didn't get to see a lot of substance, and it was a lot of run plays, a lot of screen passes. But yeah, just kind of taking the lay of the land. Almost everybody was there. A lot of teams, don't get as good of attendance, I don't think, as the Minnesota Vikings do at OTAs. The only guys missing were Blake Lynch, the linebacker, and then Harrison Smith had a child, which is why he was gone. Other than that, attendance was perfect. Did have a lot of guys that were rehabbing injuries, though. Like Andrew Booth, watched him on the rehab field. He was running sprints, looked really agile. Irv Smith Jr. was running routes kind of off to the side. He looked pretty agile as well. Like Ryan Connolly, Johnny Munt, they were rehabbing. There were like 6 or 7 rehab guys. So it was a kind of a soft startup. I didn't feel like we saw a ton of substance yesterday, but just kind of taking it all in, seeing the new faces and kind of associating them with the new numbers. It was good to get back out there.
Yeah, and congratulations to Harrison Smith from Ron Johnson Show. That guy is like a secret agent. Like, you never really know what's going on with Harrison Smith. Like, the funniest comments I saw when he got married were like, people were just like, wait a minute, when did he even start dating somebody? Like, he is so secretive with his life. I love it, though. Like, it's the best. And so, like, to just have a child and nobody, it's not a Kardashian where you just see the baby bump and you see all the pictures and the baby shower and all the stuff. And, a 1 month update every single month of the pregnancy and all that. Like, Harrison Smith lives like we lived back in 2000. Nobody knows what you're going to do until they tell you or you actually see them. I mean, that's why I love it, how Harrison Smith gets his life going. But no, congratulations to Harrison Smith and his wife on their new baby. Mainly her. She did all the work. He's just there. But congratulations to her for putting out a new hit man or woman. We'll find out what that child is, girl or boy. And if they're going to be a football player, softball player, basketball, baseball. I mean, who knows? I mean, he's an athlete. I think she's an athlete. So yeah, that should be a nice one. But Sam, as we jump into this and you look at the Vikings, and so of course, like, you have to build so this is the thing about a new coach. You have to build the base. If you're building a house, and that's what I think the Vikings are, they're building a house. When you build a house, first thing you have to do is lay down the concrete base. And so if you have a basement, you're laying down the rebar and then you're laying down the concrete. So you got to build the rebar frame for your basement. And I think that's what the Vikings are. That's why you're seeing run plays. You're just seeing the communication getting in and out of the huddle. Like, that's going to be the key, is the communication in the huddle. Kevin O'Connell to Kirk Cousins. Can Kirk Cousins get the lingo down? Can he get it to his guys in the time he's supposed to? Like, can this be a timely get out the huddle in time to see what you have to do? My guess is Kevin O'Connell's going to want him out the huddle with at least 20 seconds to 18 seconds to go so that he has time to, mess around and do some stuff to see the defense and not come to the line of scrimmage like we've seen in the past with 7 seconds. And then it's a all mad dash to snap it. And then you don't have time to call out the blitz or change the protection. This is my thoughts with Kevin O'Connell and why he has to differentiate himself from Mike Zimmer. Kevin O'Connell has to be different. He shouldn't. It's not like he could. He has to. He has to be different. The reason being, if you do everything that Mike Zimmer did, if nothing changes, one, the fan base is going to lose it. They're going to be like, look, we're literally doing the same things. And we're getting the same results out of this quarterback. So the quarterback is the problem. It's not Mike Zimmer. He has to be different because if he doesn't, then it's going to be like, oh, this is the same thing Rick Spielman did. He didn't get the right offensive line. Kirk Cousins is under pressure. It's the same thing. Why did we waste all this time getting a new coach, firing a coach that probably could have got our defense great because our defense was great? He has to be different because if the defense is just as bad as last year and they're 25th, and they can't get back up into that, like Steve Weiss said. They got to get back up into that 15-16 range. If the defense is middle of the road, their offense will be top 5. So if their defense is middle of the road, and not middle of the road meaning like subpar, just don't fall far behind in third downs. Stay up in that top 10 third downs. Overall defense, stop in the run, force them into passes. He has to be different because then people are like, well, why are we bringing an offensive coach and our defense was the problem? We are making it out to be the offense was the problem and our defense is the problem. So Mike Zimmer could have got that fixed with maybe some healthy guys and some new pieces. He has to be different because the 3-4 versus the 4-3. He has to be different because of the passes. So we think about Kevin O'Connell, and this is where I go with this. Kevin O'Connell and Kirk Cousins are going to be the key. You look at Belichick and Brady. You look at Byron Leftwich and Brady. I mean, of course, Brady's the nexus. You look at Drew Brees and his coach out of New Orleans and Sean Payton. You look at Sean McVay and Jared Goff even. Jared Goff was subpar and he got to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Then you look at Sean McVay with Matthew Stafford and it looks awesome. Like Matthew Stafford said, it was like getting a new iPhone, on his new AT&T commercial. It's like getting a new iPhone. You love the old iPhone. It did just fine for 10 years, but hey, that new iPhone is just a little bit better. It's a little bit shinier. It's a little bit faster. It does a little bit more. Processes a little bit better. That's where Matthew Stafford is looking about trading. He's making jokes about his trade and what happened. So when you trade Kevin O'Connell, I don't want an iPhone 8 anymore. We've seen what the iPhone 8 can do. We've seen what Mike Zimmer does, which is pay attention to the defense, barely recognize the offense, not really like his quarterback. That didn't work. So now what Kevin O'Connell is going to do, because he's a quarterback, he's a former player, like Steve Weiss said, he covered the Rams. Kevin O'Connell is that dude, as he called it. He's that dude. He looks like a player, acts like a player, can relate to a player. Kirk Cousins, 4,900 yards with the Commanders in 2016, 4,000 yards in 2017, 4,100 yards in 2015. With the Vikings, the last 2 seasons, 4,200 yards and 4,200 yards. Big difference with the Vikings his first year, probably better coordinator situation, 2018, 70% passing. TD to interception ratio last year, 33-7. Passer rating, 103. Kirk Cousins is just fine. Kirk Cousins is good. Kirk Cousins just doesn't get any respect. Kirk Cousins is the Rodney Dangerfield of Minnesota sports, of national sports. He doesn't get respect. He is Rodney Dangerfield to some people. He is a star. He can get it done. Kirk Cousins just needs somebody to mold him. You guys saw, what's her name? Demi Moore with the clay. Like, you have to have somebody like Kevin O'Connell is going to be the what's his name, Sam? The guy that was behind Demi Moore, the ghost.
I'm not a movie guy.
Is it Kevin something? Not Kevin Bacon. But man, they'll put it out there. The people know. But the guy in Ghost. Why am I blanking on his name? But he was behind Demi Moore, helping her mold the clay. Now, he was a ghost, but he did it. Kevin O'Connell is going to be the ghost on the field that's going to mold the clay with Kirk Cousins and make this offense become a nice piece of pottery. And that's my take on this, man. Like, Kevin O'Connell is going to be better for Kirk Cousins. When you think about third down efficiency, you think about helping him in and out of the huddle. You think about helping him understand and seeing the field and seeing what he said. Somebody, Dan Orlovsky said, he said, man, some of the best coaches, Darius Butler said it, Ryan Clark said, some of the best coaches are backup quarterbacks. Star quarterbacks aren't great at being coaches because they are so good at greatness. They don't know how they get it done. They just get it done. Whereas the backup watches, learns, listens, and understands why they're great and why this guy is great. And they're actually coaching the number one guy when he comes off the field. He's like, look, this is what I saw. This is what you saw. What you see, what you do. They are good at that. That's why backup quarterbacks tend to be coaches in the NFL. I mean, that's why the stars go to the booth, because they can keep talking about it, but they probably can't tell anybody. They probably can't help anybody get better. They can talk about it and why this play is happening and what should happen, but coaching somebody up, Ryan Tannehill already said it. I don't want to mentor this guy. Brett Favre said it. I don't want to mentor Aaron Rodgers. That's what stars do. They don't want to do it. I mean, I heard stories about Bon Jovi walking into rooms just saying, no, yes. Why? Because he can do that. Like, if you just say no and everybody stops, you're going to keep doing it. And that's what stars do. They don't go out and coach. They just play. Kevin O'Connell was a backup. He was good at it. He watched it, and now he's a great coach, and he's going to get Kirk Cousins to where he needs to be. Sam, that's my thoughts on what's going to have to happen with Kevin O'Connell versus Mike Zimmer. I don't know. What do you think?
So you said it. Kirk Cousins is good. Kirk Cousins is not great. I reserve that for Aaron Rodgers. I reserve that for Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. So there are levels to it. Yeah. So can Kevin O'Connell get Kirk Cousins closer to great? Because he's been good. No one's ever argued that. And he shows glimpses even maybe of greatness. Can we get that at a more consistent level? And the Vikings honestly haven't changed a lot, about their offense, except for who the coach is. I mean, the running backs are going to be the same. The wide receivers are the same. The offensive line isn't going to be too different. The quarterback's the same. So what's the variable? It's Kevin O'Connell. He has to be the difference that gets this offense from where it was last year into the top 5 or top 10. Yeah. That is critical. And I think it comes down to a little better, run pass balance, using Dalvin Cook a little more responsibly so he stays healthier, making sure Justin Jefferson doesn't get overlooked, finding creative ways to get the running backs the ball in space. Like, there are a lot of ways, I think, to get this offense into the great category. And it does fall on O'Connell, I think, to be the difference.
Yeah, and to pay off the tease for everybody that's stuck around, thanks for sticking around. Patrick Swayze, Dirty Dancer. Patrick Swayze played the ghost with Demi Moore. It was, I could see his face. I kept saying Kevin Bacon. It's not Kevin. It was Patrick Swayze. So Kevin O'Connell, and that's why I had Kevin in my head, will be Patrick Swayze to Kirk Cousins, Demi Moore. They're going to mold some clay on that field, and it's going to be marvelous. Well, up next on the Ron Johnson Show, we got Heisman Trophy winner Ron Dayne, Badgers running back. Talk a little bit about Roll the Boat. Let's see what he thinks about PJ Fleck. Stay tuned on the Ron Johnson Show. If you enjoy the Ron Johnson Show, you'll enjoy our other daily sports show, Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's superior sports talk with KARE 11 sports director Reggie Wilson and his co-host Luke Inman. Whether it's Twins, Vikings, Wolves, or Wild, hey, let's throw the links in there as well. Reggie and Luke have it covered with all the breaking news and big opinions. Catch the show 5 days a week by subscribing to Locked On Sports Minnesota's YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, as promised, Big Ten, just everything running back, NFL running back, Ron Dayne, Heisman Trophy winner. This guy's done stuff that only like less than 1% of people, less than 0.001% of people have done in their life, and that's win a Heisman Trophy. Also played in the NFL, though, but I ran into Ron Dayne this past weekend at the University of Minnesota, of all places, at the track meet, and I'm looking, and I'm like, man, that can't be Ron Dayne. That guy is too small. Like, the Ron Dayne I remember was a bruiser, and this guy is, looking all sexy and got the chain on, and he done lost, looking like he's in a weight room. And it's Ron Dayne in Minnesota. And so, of course, I'm like, man, I got to get him on the podcast. Ron, I want to thank you for joining me. Well, you know what? Let's get it out.
Thanks for having me.
let's get it out the way now, man. You got the shirt on. I saw the Wisconsin shirt already.
Yeah, you know it.
So Minnesota, Wisconsin, man. Like it's the Axe. They play for the Axe.
Yeah.
What's one of your biggest memories or best memories of that rivalry when you were playing?
Well, probably my biggest one was that we were getting ready. We were almost like at halftime. We were down. I'm not sure what year, but we were in Minnesota, and we were down probably like 13 points at halftime. And we was going in to score right before halftime. And I had dislocated my finger, and I had to put it back in. And then and then I'm like, oh, man, coach, my hands is hurting. He's like, well, you got to play. And I was just like, coach, I don't know how much I can't carry the ball. You know what I'm saying? Once I said that, he gave me the ball 15, 20 times in a row. And then we came back and ended up winning the X. And it was probably in 98, maybe.
Yeah, I think it actually was 99. Yeah, because
99?
I remember that. Yeah, you guys beat us at the end. It was 20-17, 1999. Yep, in Minneapolis. I thought we had it. They kind of had you under control a little bit, and then I think you just had a couple nice runs, and we couldn't get it done. But yeah, no, I didn't know about the finger though, man.
Yeah.
So you popped your own finger back in.
Yeah, it's the ring finger, and it's still swollen. It's still swollen to this day.
Oh man. So looking at Paul Chris, when you look at the Wisconsin Badgers, you look at the Gophers with PJ Fleck, and PJ Fleck, man, is one of the most polarizing figures right now when you talk about row the boat and all that stuff. And the row the boat mantra, for those that don't know, this means, put your head away from the target. So your back's to the target, just roll, let your coach lead you. Just roll, just go. Is there any moments in your life you can think of where you literally just had to put your head down and just push through? Because I know you can't say row the boat, but I know there's moments in athletes' lives where they have to do that though. Close their mind off and just go and just trust God, man. Like, have you had moments like that?
Well, actually it has, my senior year, with me going to try to break the rushing record, trying to get to the Rose Bowl again, and, win the Heisman. So, we lost middle way in the season to, I think, Cincinnati, and I fumbled the ball. And, I got smashed by Sports Illustrated, everything. Everybody was smashing me. Like, he's Heisman, he's not going to get it. So our whole goal, we all just stayed focused and did what we had to do. And we just won, I think, the rest of our games. And all we did was just, like you said, like Coach said, you row and you let your coach handle everything else. You know what I'm saying? We know his game plans. We just go with the coach said. And I like his little theme on that, especially for his team. Like, let me coach and y'all just come with me, and that happened my senior year.
Hey, man, I love that. So let's jump into the NFL. I mean, you were NFL running back. When you look at the NFL now, it's becoming a passing league. You look at all these teams signing these receivers to big time money. The running back is becoming far and few. It's not as many as it used to be, where the running back was the key thing everybody wanted to draft. Now you look at the draft this year, the early top guys were all receivers, cornerbacks, safeties, linemen. What is your thoughts on where a guy like you at 250, 260 pounds, pure brute force running back, where would you fit in today's NFL, and where do you see it? Do you see it coming back to where it could be, or do you think this is going to become a passing league going forward?
Well, that's a tough question, but but it usually, hopefully it comes back around for the bigger guys that can run. That's fast. Like the biggest back right now is Henry. Yeah. If anywhere, I would go try to play with them and their coaching staff, you know what I'm saying? Because they like big backs. So that'll be one. And then like I would say, any team that give you the opportunity to run the ball and you're in that good offense that it's a lot easier then.
So when you think about the NFL, and I've asked you this question already.
Yeah.
And you kind of told me early on at the track meet who your number one was. But if you had to pick five, and not in any order, but if you had to pick five NFL running backs you would say are top five right now, who would your top five running backs be?
Oh, man. I got to go from University of Wisconsin, JT, Jonathan Taylor. You know what I'm saying? He's number one. And then I would probably go Big Henry. And then I would go the guy from Minnesota.
Okay,
I like
Dalvin Cook. Yep.
Yep. He's nice. Chubbs is a beast.
Okay.
And then I would give it to Kamara.
Okay.
Illinois.
All right.
I mean Louisiana.
Yeah. So you look at Alvin Kamara, you look at Dalvin Cook, you look at Derrick Henry, like you said, Jonathan Taylor, and I think Jonathan Taylor right now is the all-time, the all-leading fantasy back for this upcoming season. For that simple fact, is they're going to run the ball, unlike some teams are going to pass. When you see guys like Christian McCaffrey, and he was highly rated before, then injuries set in. Do you think that's the reason why running backs are kind of getting pushed down? Because injuries to running backs are becoming more and more. Dalvin Cook faced him, Alvin Kamara faced him, Derrick Henry faced it this past year. So now people are saying, why pay a running back that's going to get beat up when a receiver is not going to take as many hits? Do you think that's probably part of the problem?
Yeah, and especially you got to think about the offense. Everything is spread out now, so you don't have fullbacks on teams no more that's going to take that extra hit if you're a running back. So it's a tight end, so it's totally different now. You spread it out, and like McCaffrey, he can be on the swing. He's almost like he really reminds me of is a Marshall Faulk. You know what I'm saying? Because Marshall Faulk was doing it way before anybody was doing that. Like he was like a slash wide receiver, period. Like they line him up on routes and do all that. So, now that most of the teams are really running into that and going with that, I don't think the big backs will be able to come back now because, hey, you ain't got a fullback. You ain't running it. You got to do passes. You got to come out the back. A lot more than just like they used to do with the big backs.
And when you look at the Big Ten West, last question, the Big Ten West, you got Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, and that's kind of the early on favorites everybody's kind of rolling with. I think that's an easy one for people to roll with. Those three teams are going to fight for the West. Where do you see Wisconsin football going this season?
Well, I think we should be pretty good. I think we should be able to come out and just get on the roll and have some fun. Got some new guys in there, some younger guys that's going to pick up some big positions and be able to play, step in, especially on defense. And offense is going to be all right, so we ain't got to worry about that.
Well, I want to thank you, Ron, for joining me on the Ron Johnson Show. That's Ron Squared today, I guess we'll call it. Up next, everybody, it's the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes. Stay tuned.
All right. Appreciate you, man.
All right, man. Appreciate you. Hey, do you want instant post-game reaction from the insiders that cover your favorite sports teams? Well, check out our Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Following every Twins, Vikings, Wild, Wolves, Lynx, Loons, whatever. We are going to talk about it on our Locked On team hosts, and they're broadcasting live with team insiders like Kevin Gorg for the Wild, Brandon Warren for the Twins. Never miss a podcast by subscribing to Locked On Sports Minnesota's YouTube channel. Well, up next, we got the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes. Take it away, Sam.
More Vikings OTA talk. This is one interesting observation I made yesterday. The right guard spot rotated between Jesse Davis and Chris Reed, a couple of veterans they brought in. We didn't see Wyatt Davis. We didn't see Oli Udoh, who was the right guard last year. So, Ron, I ask you this. Are Davis and even Udoh, are either of them in danger of not making this roster?
Yeah. Anytime that you don't solidify your spot in the NFL, you are subject to being released. And this is the thing. Rent is due in the NFL. That's what I used to always hear that when I was with the Ravens. Rent is due in the NFL, and it's due every day. This is not a weekly rent. This is not a monthly rent. Every day. One of our special teams assistants, he used to say that was mainly with special teams guys too. Every day. Because like stars, like Ray Lewis, his rent might be due yearly. When you're a big time guy like Jamal Lewis, running back, 2,000 yards in a season, 296, 295 yards in a game, his rent might be due every 3 or 4 months. But when you're on the special teams, every day. And so when you look at those guys, offensive linemen specifically, they don't really contribute to special teams besides field goal or extra point. But they're not in the, and not to say that's not important. Those are very important, especially for Minnesota sports fans. The kicking game is extremely important because every game is coming down to a kick when it matters the most, it feels like in Minnesota. And so when you think about the core special teams, the ones that get a ton of run up and down the field practice, punt, kickoff return. Those are, and punt return. Those are kind of the four that, when you look at teams, as they call it, those are when you're going to have your DBs, your receivers, your linebackers. That's when you're looking at who's that fifth receiver, who's that ninth, 10th DB, who's that sixth, seventh, eighth possible, outside linebacker, defensive end. That's how you make it. But when you're offensive lineman, you just got to solidify that you're a true backup. You're a true swing guy. You're a guy that if somebody goes down in a game or gets COVID, you can possibly start and help the team out in that next game. And so I can see why Jesse Davis and Chris Reed are up there right now, because Wyatt Davis showed us nothing last year, and Oli Udoh, he was in there. Didn't do great, didn't do bad, but didn't do great. And that's the problem. If you're getting pushed back into the quarterback, if you're responsible for a lot of big time, highlights from inside guys like Aaron Donald and, all these inside guys, push Puna forward, they're pushing through on you, Chris Jones, and all of a sudden you're the highlight, and again, Akeem Hicks is a different beast. I can't get mad at you getting pushed back by Akeem Hicks, but when that happens too many times, you end up where you're at. And these coaches don't know those two guys, but what they do is watch film and they listen to the scouts, and that's why they are where they are. So yes, they are subject to being cut.
Yeah, I'm worried about Davis. I mean, we saw nothing last year and nothing so far in the early stages this year. I think that Udoh might have a place because he can be one of those 4-position swing guys. He can probably play both guard spots. He could play the tackle spots. And Rashad Hill's gone, so they do need a swing tackle. So I think Udoh could play a backup role. I don't know what Davis's flexibility is, but I'm worried about Wyatt Davis. NBA draft lottery last night. Here are the top 3 picks: the Magic, the Thunder, the Rockets, and of course, Chet Holmgren, the Minnehaha product. He is eligible to be taken in those top 3 picks. Maybe number 1, 2, 3. We don't know yet. Ron, where do you think Chet winds up in the NBA?
Honestly, I think Magic, only for the simple fact of it's between him and Paolo Banchero. Jaden Ivey is also a guy out of Purdue, and then the guard out of I think it's Arthur Smith or something out of Auburn. You're not gonna see the Magic take a guard, so I think Jaden Ivey is out. Why? Because they already have a Jaden Ivey. They have Jalen Suggs. They also have the kid out of I think North Carolina, the left-handed kid, or he's at North Carolina, I think, or UConn or something, but the left-handed guard from one of those blue bloods, but he's there. So when you already have 2 guards in your system, you don't need a Jaden Ivey. What do you need? You need a Paolo Banchero, or you need a Chet Holmgren. Now, what is the NBA about? NBA is about friends always wanting to play together. You look at karl-Anthony Towns, Devin Booker, D'Angelo Russell. They've been trying to play together. Did not work out because they got Anthony Edwards, which I think was just fine. Definitely not a Devin Booker type shooter, but Anthony Edwards gets the job done. He's a star in this league. When you see the fact of like LeBron wanting to play with Carmelo and D Wade and all these guys because he became friends with them in the draft process. Well, Chet Holmgren has a bigger friendship with Jalen Suggs. They went to high school together. They grew up together. They played for Team Sizzle Grassroots together. They didn't play together in college, but went to the same college. Chet probably went there because of the connection to Jalen Suggs and the recruiting that Gonzaga did with the Minnesota area so far, or at least that school and that AAU team specifically with Team Sizzle. So I can see the Magic taking them because it's like, if they already had chemistry, if they already know each other, you're now adding not just a young piece, you're adding a piece that, one can shoot. He can spread the floor out, so he can take, like, if he has to guard, and that's the other thing though. I don't know who he's going to guard in the NBA, because when you look at, like, let's just say Giannis, the Greek freak, he has no chance of stopping Giannis from doing what Giannis does. Like, no chance in hell ever. Like, until he gets his grown man body, because he's only like 19. So once he eats and gets a little stronger, which I don't think he'll ever truly get like Giannis strong, but who knows? There's a lot of milk out there. There's a lot of new supplements out there. I'm pretty sure a bunch of sponsors that do protein shakes are going to come after him. And then maybe he'll all of a sudden be this, slim bodybuilder. But that's where I struggle with who can he guard. Now, the other question people always say, well, who can guard him? True. He's gonna play up top. He's gonna, he can shoot threes. He can shoot that easy free throw line jumper, but he can spread the floor out to take the 4 out of there so that Jalen Suggs can get in there and create. And I think that's going to be the key. Whoever gets him, the Thunder, the Rockets, I just don't know. I'd see the Magic for the friendship because of Paolo Banchero. That could be another option because he, in my opinion, is the best player in the draft.
Yeah, and when you think about, drafting a guy who has good chemistry with Jalen Suggs, I'm looking at the Magic roster, and just to give you an idea of their mindset, they brought in a couple brothers to their team too. They've got Franz Wagner and Moritz Wagner just because of that family connection. And I think Chet and Jalen are as close as you can get to another family connection with all of their history together. I remember watching them play in high school, throwing alley-oops off the backboard to each other. They were electric. So I would love to see that tandem. That would be sweet. I have a Packers question for you, Ron. Jair Alexander signs the biggest cornerback deal in the NFL, $21 million per year. So that's a good extension for the Packers. They keep a really good player on their defense. However, they've lost za'darius Smith. They've lost Chandon Sullivan to the Vikings. They've lost Oren Burks. So their defense is a bit depleted, even though they're keeping Jair Alexander around long term. You think the Packers defense is going to be better or worse this year?
Well, they also got Devondre Campbell. They signed him to, I think, a $50 million deal as well. I think for the Packers, honestly, they were ready to be done with za'darius. I mean, I know he's a Viking, and we think he can be really good, and he was good when he's healthy. And I think that's where the Packers mentally are. Chandon Sullivan, he was a piece of the puzzle, but he wasn't the puzzle. He's one of the corner pieces that, hey, if I don't finish this puzzle because I'm missing a corner piece, hey, it's still a puzzle. I still can see the main picture. The main picture is Aaron Rodgers. I think that's where they care about. That's why they let Devontae Adams go. They feel like they have enough key pieces that they're still going to be good. They still have Matt LaFleur, one of the smartest coaches I've seen when you look at offensive play calling, creation, formations, getting the same look, but different plays, getting the same play, but different looks. He's really good at that when you break down. I can't wait you remember a year what that was. I think it was a COVID year, but I think they ran 19 plays, and it was 11 different formations that I counted in that 19 plays, which is crazy. And so when you look at that, when you look at all the things he can do, I think they're thinking look, man, we're an offensive-minded team. We have a great quarterback. Our defense just has to be okay. Jair Alexander, he had a good season. Justin Jefferson did eat him up. But that's I think where they're thinking hey, it's hard to get good corners out there. So many teams have shown that now. When you don't have good corners, you just get killed. And so for the Packers defense, I don't think there's going to be a drop off. I think they're going to be just fine. Like I said, this is Darius thing for them. It was the injury last year anyway, so they didn't really have him. Chandon Sullivan wasn't one of their main staples. I think they signed the guys they wanted to keep. I think Devondre Campbell is kind of their next. I mean, he's their 5-year guy now. He's their guy. He's the guy they think can really get up to the quarterback and really play that middle of the field. Can really be a hammer and take running backs out when they hit the hole. So no, I think they'll be fine. I think it's gonna be a good battle between the Vikings and the Packers. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, the Packers offense is their best defense. When they're constantly playing from ahead, give the defense an opportunity to rush the passer. I think what you said about the Packers applies to the Vikings. You just try to be an offensive-minded team and have the defense be okay instead of bottom 5, and you're going to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah. And like I said, Steve Weiss said it. We've heard so many people say it now. That's where the Vikings are going to become. And that's why I asked all these guys. Kevin O'Connell, is he the next Matt LaFleur? Is he the next Zach Taylor? Is he that name up there? I think he has the mental capacity. He's a former quarterback. He's a connector of players. So yeah, I like that situation with Kirk Cousins and Kevin O'Connell. They get along. When you feel like you can walk into your coach's office, just have a normal conversation about anything, I think that's the key. I think Mike Zimmer was a little bit tense, and that starts to wear on you mentally long term. And that's what happened to Kirk Cousins. I think it just started to wear on him. It got to him. It got to the team. To hear so many guys say that. Now it's a new era. It's a breath of fresh air. And so now this Packers-Vikings game is going to be fun. It's going to be two young coaches going at it. And it's going to be about gamemanship. How can we get after the quarterback, but how can I stop you from getting after my quarterback? And that's going to be the name of the game going forward. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining me today on the Ron Johnson Show. Please go back and watch the Ron Dayne interview if you have not. In the open, of course, we talked about the Vikings. What does Kevin O'Connell have to do to be different from Mike Zimmer? Only time will tell. But that'll do it for us today. Please subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota on YouTube. Please find the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. And you can also download us on wherever you get your podcast. So search Locked On Minnesota Sports, subscribe to it on your podcast feed, and then you'll get the Ron Johnson Show whenever we upload them. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.